Welcome to another episode of Business with Passion. Each show features guests who have transformed their long-term passion into a successful business. I'm your host, Jay Hamilton Roth. My marketing strategy business grew from my love of talking with passionate business owners. In this series, I share their passion with you. So if you're looking for inspiration to enhance your business passion, keep watching. Tripp, you've been doing woodworking full-time for about 7 years, and your work is a wide variety of different types of work, but it's all functional and highly artistic. And people can see this work throughout California. Can you tell us more about your passion for woodworking?
Well, I got into woodworking when I was about 6. My father turned me on to working on the lathe. And ever since then, grain and patterns and the touch of wood has really made me excited. So I've continued with it, and that's probably what excites me the most, is looking at the beautiful grain and the touch and smelling it and being physical, making something, and that whole process. I was born in San Francisco, and I moved to Bolinas when I was 2. And my father bought 17 acres here outside of Bolinas, near the lagoon. And we lived in a farmhouse while he was building the roundhouse up the hill. And at about the age of 6, he turned me on. I was playing in the shop and getting in his hair, and he put me on the lathe, a spindle lathe, making candle holders with old files, which he used when he was about 35 to make bowls. And I spent years on that, making candle holders and cannons and toys. And progressed from there to making beautiful bowls. And I did that until I was about, through high school, and then I went to college and, was away teaching in the city, and came back about 7 years ago and took over the business when he passed away. Father turned me onto wood since I grew up around it, and the smells of it, his finishes that he came up with, just living with it, playing in the forests. Wood was all around me, and the beauty of wood was all around me. And exposing the grain, turning, really turned me onto it, because it was almost like running through the forest. My father was put through college by his dad. He went to business school at Dartmouth and was being programmed more or less to become a CPA, that's what my grandfather did, a global CPA. And father didn't want to sit at a desk his whole life. In New York, before he came out here, he saw a show, a woodworking show. And there were pieces by Prestini, a bowl maker. He saw these beautiful bowls and said, maybe I could do that. I don't really know if he thought about making a living. I think he was more turned on to making something pretty and beautiful. So he came out here and bought a lathe, and that's how it got going. My father worked almost every day of his life here in the shop. He made a living. He built this house, he built the shop, he raised us, all of the proceeds of furniture. He was not a trust funder. Everything that he made, he had to work for his dollars. So it was hard. And I didn't see much freedom from it. It seemed like a lot of toil, and it is. So I grew up surfing and wanted to be more free, so I never really thought of it as a viable way for me to make a living. So I went to college and became a teacher for a while, and was able to play. What led me back in is Dad called me up one day, and he asked me to refinish or to finish a piece because his eyesight was going. So I came back in and sanded a drop leaf table for him that was going back east. And realized that maybe this could work for me, because I could basically plan my whole life how I wanted to. No one else was telling me what to do. And ever since then, I kind of faded out from the teaching and started continuing with some of his orders because he couldn't fill them. His eyesight was going. He didn't want to lift wood as much. He was 80 and was, he was making furniture solid up until he was 80. And so I continued with it and left the teaching. I still do outdoor ed at Point Bonita occasionally. But I realized that this maybe was viable. I could maybe raise the prices of my pieces and his pieces. I mean, he was of the generation of, you know, the Depression, and would not charge what I thought he could get for his pieces. He was scared to alienate his customers, which, you know, he couldn't afford to do. He didn't have anything to fall back on. But I did. So I've raised the prices, which was never enough. Father's style, and which I've inherited and probably taken off and I'm doing myself, is more, I know some people call it a muscular, curvilinear, soft, rounded, a style that you want to touch with very little sharp edges. But this is more soft. And I don't know if he came up with that. Sam Malouf certainly did it. But there's been the California roundover has been attributed to him. And also he was making a living doing this stuff, and he needed to mainstream a lot of his processes. He couldn't afford to spend an absurd amount of time on a chair. Well, a chair is the hardest thing to make, or a table. So rounding the corners and sanding them smooth also made things flow a little faster. Well, the library was a huge commission in 1966 when it moved from its original place up on the hill in Mill Valley to where it is now. And that was a massive undertaking. There was more than 100 pieces. I don't know if he had done anything prior to that on that scale. The Roundhouse, it was put in Life magazine in December, I think 9th of 1966. And that was a huge jump for Father, probably, because that was Life magazine was large then. And it put Dad on the map big time. It first started to be built in 1960 approximately, and took 8 years to build. I don't think it was ever completely completed. There was always, you know, finish work to be done forever. But it was an imagination that he had of building something circular before circular was hip and domes were hip. I don't know where he got the idea from, but it was a 3-level, half circular house, 3 half levels, and it was all made by hand by him and an apprentice. And every weekend they would work up the hill here, and steadily for 8 years. And it was an example of his imagination of bringing in the outdoors into the house. There was a pool, a fish pond that went underneath the foundation and went into the living room. It's where the fish can go back out and in, and, you know, was cold as hell. He was a co-founder of the Bolinas Guild, which Tom D'Onofrio, a wood artist, enthusiastically initiated back in '72. And Father was one of the first members with about 4 others. And since then it's blossomed into quite a enterprise with over 115 members. And I still have apprentices coming out, and it's still going on. And no one thought it would continue, but it certainly has, and that's the thanks to Tom D'Onofrio.
Tripp, tell me about your business today. Tell me who you sell to, where you sell stuff. How do even people find out about you?
You know, initially I started selling to Father's old clients, but since I started turning when I was 6 too, I've been putting out bowls like this, mostly salad bowls, and you can see some over here. But there was a great market in Sausalito. Fine Woodworking was a fantastic gallery for 20 years on Bridgeway, and I sold a lot through there, and a lot of clients that met my work continued with me after that closed. And then I've done numerous shows to show my work, like the Mill Valley Crafts Fair. I've also done the Terra Linda Crafts Fair and a lot of local crafts fairs. The Bolinas Crafts Fair, which is quite good. And most of my stuff, though, is, I think, word of mouth. One person buys something beautiful and people go, oh, you got to go look at this guy's stuff, you know, which is the way my father worked too. He did shows, but they were, you know, shows are a pain, but it's worthwhile. And the more energy you put into anything in life, you know, the more you get out. So it all depends on your enthusiasm. Here's a piece of Claro Walnut that a client gave me that has been drying in his backyard for about 35 years, and he's hired me to turn a bowl out of it. So that's what we're going to do. So the first thing I do is try to true it and make sure it won't fly off. Basic method of sharpening these gouges. Very simple. Try to keep it at the same angle and just rotate it in your hands. A lot of times the bowl flies off doing this because you really can get aggressive. Puts a lot of torque on the bowl. So basically I just start taking it down, and for me the whole beauty of, one of the beauties of doing the bowls is to make it all the same thickness. So I take it down slowly. Well, not that slowly, and then I start taking calipers to it to make sure she's even all the way through, even the bottom. Maybe the bottom's a little thicker, but I like it to be like almost eggshell. But I want it to be usable, so I don't take it down. You know, I could take it down where it's almost not usable. So I leave it maybe, 3/8 max, 1/4 inch probably would be a good usable thickness here. But you can make it paper thin if you want, especially with these beautiful gouges. I also make jewelry boxes. Here's one. This is made out of lychee nut, which is from a root in Java. I have a friend that lives in Java, and he's been sending me these old roots from old orchards, the lychee nut tree, and it's a jewelry box. And these are bandsaw boxes, which I'm pretty sure my father invented these things, where you cut the back off of the trunk. It's just basically a trunk of a tree. You cut the back off, you draw your lines however you would like, put it on the bandsaw, the back is off, cut out these drawers on the bandsaw, and then you have these solid blocks that come out, and then you cut this out of the bandsaw. And then you have this piece, and you cut that out, and voila, you've got a little drawer. And the felt takes up the space that the blade cut, and it fits tight. It's a great idea, and it's been taken or plagiarized by many woodworkers since my father started making them back in the, God knows when, I don't know when he started doing them, probably back in the 60s. So I make a lot of these, and they're fun because you can use old wood and play around with designs and sculpt. They're basically sculptural forms. This is a design my father came up with. It just didn't happen all of a sudden. It took about 10 years to come up with a Wishbone chair. You can kind of see the wishbone here. It's a little abstract design of a wishbone. But it was his best-selling chair. He used to make them and sell them for about $300 when he first started. And by the time he passed away in 2006, they were going for about $800. And now I make them for $2,000 a piece. They're an incredibly sturdy chair. They're laminated with 7 laminations here. All the laminations are tapered, so the base is thicker than the arm up here. This one is made out of cherry, I think. And we do our own caning out of leather and dye them. And it's a great chair. It's solid and it's comfortable. And they're fun to make. They're highly sculptured and with little buttons covering bolts that put them together. I mean, one thing that my father designed, that he couldn't take too much time with joinery, so his idea of making things flow faster was to bolt things together, which is the antithesis of what a fine craftsman would do. And a lot of, I think, traditional furniture makers would look down on that. But it certainly did increase the speed of production, and you put little hand-turned plugs to cover up the bolts. And which is kind of nice because you can pop these out, and when the wood shrinks, which it usually does when it leaves this area, and tighten up the chair. And also it makes refinishing this chair way easier because you can take it apart and completely strip the wood and refinish it and bolt it back together, which makes its lifespan tremendously long. So that's it's not an easy chair to make, and it takes about 40 hours. These are all logs that have been cut to slabs. They're called flitches. And why we have logs is because you can make furniture that is book matched, right? You can open the book up and there's mirror images of the grain on both sides. If you want something, you know, that's integral and looks like it's seamless, you need to buy it in log form. You can't go and buy book matched wood from the hardwood stores. They just have an assortment of random woods. Here's a chess table that I'm making. It's going to be a 2-piece chess table. I've never made one of these. The client wants to be able to pull it apart and stick one half against the wall. He's got a small apartment. But I came up with a way. This is a piece of eucalyptus, or it's laminated eucalyptus. I don't know, it must be, I don't know how many, a lot. 12 pieces, I can see it right here. But I came up with a way to inlay just the negative space, the dark material, and leave the rest of the eucalyptus table intact. So it's all book matched and everything. It's a seamless, integrated chess table. So it looks like just the negative space was inlaid. And you can't see it on the back, but it's a process that I dreamt about, and it finally works. I don't know if other people are doing it or not, but it's fairly rapid, and it comes out beautifully. This is a little model of a children's table that I made, and I wanted to make it with 3 legs. So I'd made the model first to see if it would work, and you know, it's just way too tipsy. And I'm glad I did make the model because I really couldn't tell if I just rendered that, you know, on paper. So it's almost mandatory for me, at least, to make a model of a project just to make sure that it works. And you make the model out of the same wood that you make the furniture so the client can get a true idea of what it's going to look like. And here's not a wood model, but a paper model of the settee that I have in the Mill Valley Library that I designed. And they wanted a love seat, and I really couldn't, for the life of me, think of a love seat that would be in the range of like $5,000 or so. That wouldn't take forever to make, because if I had to steam bend all these curves, boy, it would just take months, or a month at least. So what I came up with flat planes at an angle. So I just started folding paper and putting an angle on it to see if there was a comfortable way to form this. And I came up with this little design. And I think it came out quite nice. It was just an experiment and a little bit of imagination. Here's an example of my father's turnings, like he was transitioning from turning to furniture. So you can see, he turned all these parts, and he was still, stuck on the lathe, but starting to go into furniture. And this was made, and probably all the dates are on them. This is 64. My father wrote a book started writing a book 15 years before he passed away. And started taking notes and coming up with various chapters. And he toiled with it. He bought himself the first Mac, and then went to, he had floppies and then CDs and zip drives, and with the whole process of the technology. And finally, the technology outpaced him, but he was still writing and came up with quite a book before he died, but never got to publish it. So Linda Moore, who's an editor, and I have been working on it since he passed away, and laying it out and editing it and bringing all the slides to digital form. And have sent the files to Hong Kong, and it's going to be published in April. Woohoo! Yeah, it's a huge project. It's not a large book. It's 160 pages. But it's going to be a beauty. And it's completely his writings. I've enhanced some of the photography, taken a few more shots, close-ups with digital. And we're glad it's being printed. So if you're interested in that book, let me know. So it's going to be, he's probably one of the most innovative designers in woodworking there is and has been. If you're an artist and are looking for ideas, and philosophy, he's a very good writer, and it will be an astounding little book. I would say that if you're going to get into this racket or trade, have something to fall back on. Whether it's teaching or whether it's carpentry or something that's definitely viable to fall back on. I wouldn't go into it without some monetary support behind you, at least a little bit. So I think most people are hobbyists at it. And I probably should be. But I'm not, and you can make it, but it takes a lot of effort. And it takes a lot of enthusiasm. And it's a lot of hard work. It's physical, and it's also mental in the sense of designing and coming up with new ideas continually, because you don't want to become stagnant. And I could just stay with one of my dad's pieces and mimic these for the rest of my life, which would be fine because I love them. But how boring would that be? I'm trying not to live on my father's coattails, and I think a lot of people may put that upon me, but hopefully I'm not. In a lot of ways I wouldn't be here without him, obviously, but I'm not trying to completely copy him and take that. I want to come up with my own ideas, or at least use his ideas and exemplify them in new ways. But he definitely, a lot of his designs are hard to, and you wouldn't want to change because they are exceptional. If money is no object, you become lazy. And your drive, as I've seen with a lot of people who don't have to make a living, is lacking. That's not entirely true, but I think you need the push. You need the hunger to want to do any art well. It helps push it along, and it helps for the creative process. I may be wrong, to come up with a new idea takes tons of time, and I don't pay myself for that. It would make, having money always makes life easier. But I don't think it's a necessity, and it might be a detriment.
Thanks for watching this episode of Business with Passion. If you'd like more information about Tripp Carpenter, other episodes, or perhaps to be a guest on a future show, go online to tv.manygoodideas.com.